When I first started playing Delta Force, I kept trying to force fights and rely too much on my gun skill to take out enemy players. But the reality is that this game has a lot more going on compared to other first-person shooter games. And I had to learn the hard way that you can't just face check people and get away with it, especially as a solo. So if you're new to the game or you're jumping in as your first extraction shooter on console, I'm going to go over 5 rules that you can implement today and improve almost instantly instead of having to learn the hard way like I did. Rule number 1, this is a non-negotiable. When I first started out, I was running recruit gear tickets thinking that if I could just get into position and get the first shot on the player, I would win. But the problem is that white ammo is so horrendously bad that unless the person you're shooting at is a 5-year-old playing while their dad's at work, you're just not going to win that gunfight. And to be successful against skilled players, it's a bare minimum requirement that you bring in the max ammo type allowed for that game mode. So for easy, you need blue. For normal and hard, you need gold ammo. Now, some of the SMGs max out at purple, and honestly, because of the fast fire rate, you can get away with it. I've recently been playing a lot with squad fill on and playing with random people, and many of the players are new, and when I talk to them, they'll either have white or green ammo. Sure, the lower tier ammo is cheap and useful for dealing with the guard bots, but when you run into a team of good players running full purple gear, it's just not going to cut it. And if you want to save a little bit of money in the process, I recommend getting the battle pass for the seasonal 2x3 safe box and using that to carry your blue ammo because I'll be honest with you guys, the prices have been a little high with all the new players joining, but it's completely worth it because how the ammo and armor systems work in the game. Think about it this way. You're spending an extra 60 to 75,000 on ammo, but if you wipe one team, you're usually walking out with 300,000 on a bad day. Rule number 2, if you find yourself dying to teams that seem to come out of nowhere or shoot you in the back, listen up. This one's going to be super important. Whatever map you're playing, you need to learn the spawn locations and the hot zone areas of the map. If you don't know where to check for players and what paths are common rotations, you're going to either get caught out or get taken out unexpectedly and feel like the enemy team was just camping. And I actually have an entire video dedicated to this for Zero Dam, breaking down the spawns, the rotations, and how to increase your big picture thinking of where every team on the map is. I'll link it at the end of this video. But maps like Zero Dam and Space City are a little easier to pinpoint exactly where every team is because of their size and shape, where on the other hand, maps like Lay Alley Grove or Prison are quite a bit more difficult because you can't really tell how many teams are left or where they're at all times. But once you understand the general layout, the general flow of the maps, it'll become easier and more predictable to understand what areas are risky, where other players are likely to be, and when they will rotate through certain parts of the map. And this will help you either avoid teams for successful loot runs or learn to set up and catch teams by surprise. Rule number 3, this is the one that I struggle with the most because I get impatient and sometimes I get myself out of position or I find myself running straight into a bad situation. Do not push a team or make a move until you have information. Short of using wall hacks, information is the biggest advantage you can have in this game. Things like a player's location, hearing enemies healing, the sound of a Luna arrow or a hack claw throwing knife, all of it matters when it comes to sizing up the enemy and trying to figure out where they're at. There's a reason that Luna is the most overpowered character in the game because she gives her entire team wall hacks. You never want the fight to be fair. You want to have every advantage you can. You want the enemy team to be the ones crying that they were caught off guard, stack everything in your favor, and do not give them an opening. The first knock is the most critical part of fighting, and the tension of opening a fight in Delta Force is some of the best moments in first-person shooter history. So when you hear an enemy team approaching, start sizing them up. Are they running, crouch walking, shooting a suppressed weapon? What utility can you hear them using? Can you start to put together in your head what the team composition is? All of these things matter in a fight. For example, if you know they have a Shepherd, you know that even if you get that first knock, Shepherd's probably going to drop their ultimate ability along with the trip mines to stop your team from pushing. If they have a Seneva, you know they're probably going to use that riot shield to either close the gap on your team or potentially pull one of you in with the grapple hook. And this is kind of a bonus rule, but I'll just include it here. As you get better and better, you're going to start to understand the rhythm of gunfights. And as many moving pieces as this game has, it can really all be boiled down to simple rules that you need to consistently execute. In short, you want to do everything in your power to create an advantage for your team. Once you get that advantage and you start to have momentum, you need to try and capitalize on that advantage, pressure the enemy team, and ultimately winning the fight. On the flip side, if you're at a disadvantage, you need to back up, create space so that you can heal and reset the fight. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance in how these moments play out, but in simple form, do everything you can to create an advantage and then capitalize on that advantage. And if you're at a disadvantage, do everything you can to create space and reset the gunfight on even ground. Rinse and repeat until you've wiped the entire lobby. It's that easy, right? Now, in Delta Force, there are weapons and gear that are extremely expensive and aren't really that much better, but they're just fun to use. But when you're trying to make money every raid, it's important to use gear that gives you the most bang for your buck. But that doesn't stop in-game. If you're a mouse and keyboard player or you're a console player who's excited to use mouse and keyboard when it gets added next season, Freefall Mousepads are hands down my favorite mousepads, and for the price, you genuinely cannot beat it. The team at Freefall was nice enough to send over their control pad as well as their base house speed pad. Now, I've been using Freefall mousepads for 2 years before ever working with them, and my favorite part is the SV base because it's extremely firm, giving you the hardness and consistency of a glass pad with the control and texture of a cloth pad. If you want to check them out, links for everything will be in the description down below. If you do decide to purchase something through that link, I earn a commission and it helps support the channel. But let's get into rule number 4. The operator you choose can have a massive impact on if your team survives or you go back to the lobby empty-handed. But the operator you choose doesn't matter at all if you never utilize their kit, which is why rule number 4 is to never die with unused utility. Do not die with grenades in your pocket. Do not die with a Luna scan arrow. Now, I understand not wanting to waste your gear or just spam dump everything at first sight, but you need to make sure that you're using the full kit available to you, or you're likely going to die to a team that does. Earlier, we talked about information being the biggest advantage you can have, but it's also the biggest advantage the enemy can have. And that's why rule number 5 is to not give away your position. Every time a guard or a rocketeer shoots at you, you're sending out a massive beacon to the entire lobby that says, "Hey, I'm over here. Come get me." And there are a handful of sounds that only players can make and will be a dead giveaway if an enemy team is nearby. But the loudest and most offensive one is probably painkillers. And that's why you need to pop painkillers long before you get into a fight, and make sure you do it outside of 50 meters from where you think enemies might be sitting, because it's the most distinct sound in the game, and when you hear it, you immediately know an enemy team is coming and they're ready to fight. The reason you need to do it outside of 50 meters is because with the Ditch training helmet giving a hearing boost of 50% along with the noise reduction, players can hear you popping pills from a long distance away, especially good players that are in position and they're just waiting for you to walk into their trap or for you to make a mistake. If you're new to the game and you find that navigating Zero Dam is a bit confusing, or you feel like teams show up out of nowhere, check out this video. Or if you're interested in learning the unwritten rules of Delta Force operations, check out this video.